Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your sources, really dig into them, and pull out the most fascinating insights. Today, we're jumping into something pretty extraordinary. It's a document called C.A. Bogardus's 1,000 Secrets of Wise and Rich Men Revealed. I mean, just the title alone, it kind of takes you back, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It promises this shortcut to understanding the world. And the author, get this, the champion quick shot of the world.
Right. Quite the claim.
It really is. And, maybe fitting for a book that's trying to give you shortcuts for, well, almost everything. You've given us this selection, and it's this incredibly eclectic mix. I mean, truly.
What kind of stuff?
Everything. You've got, really old medical advice, household formulas, complex political arguments, even these bizarre memory tricks.
Wow. So it's really a snapshot, then, of a totally different time.
Exactly. It's overflowing with practical tips, some genuinely surprising facts, and, let's be honest, some pretty questionable wisdom, too.
Okay. So our mission here for this deep dive is basically to unpack this treasure trove, right?
Yeah.
See what counted as wise or a secret back then, and, what still resonates or maybe just shocks us now.
And it wasn't just about getting rich quick, apparently. The author talks about mankind having these two great duties, especially in the U.S.
Go on.
Self-support and education, that's one. And the other is governmental support and national enlightenment. He wraps it all up under mankind's duty is to man. And he splits the book. There's domestic or household economy. That's the part to help you save money and enjoy life.
Right.
And then there's national or political economy.
Okay, let's get into it. You're about to get this shortcut, this sort of crash course, in a really unique collection of secrets.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking weird medical stuff, home remedies, deception tactics, memory hacks, even political debates. So yeah, get ready. This is genuinely fascinating stuff. Where should we start? Maybe the remedies. The first aid, that Bogardus's liniment, sounds like something straight out of a Wild West show.
It really does, doesn't it? It's this potent mix. You've got oils like kejaput, sassafras, strong stuff like mustard, capsicum, plus gum camphor and a whole lot of alcohol. Basically a really strong, maybe slightly alarming topical rub.
And it was
pretty much any ache or pain, but the instructions get wild. For a sore throat, soak a towel, hold it over your mouth for hours, supposedly cured.
Hours, wow.
And for croup, you bathe the throat and chest, and you give a 1/4 teaspoon internally in warm water every few minutes until they're better. And you make the child breathe the fumes.
Breathe the fumes. Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about this sure cure for smallpox? That sounds ambitious.
Extremely ambitious. It claims an ounce of cream of tartar dissolved in a pint of boiling water, drunk cold, works as both a preventative and a cure. And get this, known to have succeeded in thousands of cases without a failure.
Thousands without failure.
That's what it says. Now, obviously, that tells us more about, the desperation for any solution back then rather than the actual effectiveness. People wanted relief.
Right. Desperate times.
Exactly. And the first aid section is just as dramatic. If someone's literally on fire,
What do you do?
lay them down flat, throw a rug or tablecloth over them, and roll them on the floor.
Okay. Practical, I guess. Stop, drop, and roll, old school edition.
Pretty much. And dirt in the eye, use your finger to pull the lid down, or a netting needle or a bodkin.
A bodkin near the eye.
I know. To turn the eyelid inside out and wipe the dirt off with a silk handkerchief, then cold water and keep the light out.
Yikes. Okay, what else? Lime in the eye.
Syringe with warm vinegar and water.
Vinegar. Ouch.
And for metal bits, like from a lathe, fold the eyelid back, use the flat edge of a silver probe to pick it up, then apply a lead and vitriol lotion.
A silver probe. This is intense stuff. What does all this really tell us about, emergency care back then?
Well, it paints a really vivid picture, doesn't it? Before 9/11, before paramedics, people had to be incredibly self-reliant. They used what they had, even if it sounds shocking now. It was hands-on, immediate. They even knew the difference between arterial bleeding, bright red, spurting, and venous, darker, steady flow. Different pressure points for each.
Huh.
For arterial bleeding, it even suggests a makeshift tourniquet, like a broom handle and tape, or a penny wrapped in lint pressed on the artery.
A penny. Wow. Resourceful.
And for shock, loosen clothes, raise the head, smelling salts, hot water bottles on the feet.
Okay, some of that sounds vaguely familiar. But what about this difference between concussion and brain compression? That seems subtle for a general audience book.
That's a really good point, because while some treatments seem, basic now, his observations were quite detailed for the time, like checking pupil size or using a tickle test on the feet. It was like foundational neurology for the common person.
A tickle test.
Yeah. He's trying to give people ways to figure out how serious a head injury is fast. With a concussion, the book says, body cold, pulse weak, breathing slow, pupil contracted. And crucially, they feel a tickle on their feet, and you can get an answer if you shout.
Okay.
But with brain compression, loss of sensation, they don't feel the tickle, can't rouse them, pulse slow, breathing deep and snorting, pupil enlarged. For compression, the advice is raise the head, loosen clothing, get a surgeon, and apply things like mustard poultices, leeches.
Leeches, of course.
Right, but it shows this empirical approach, trying to categorize and react even without modern tools.
That actually is remarkably specific. It mentions poison antidotes too, right?
It does. For mercury or arsenic, give milk or egg whites, then a flour paste. For phosphorus, like from match heads maybe, it's magnesia and water, then gooey drinks, then powdered bone charcoal.
Practical, yeah, but a bit unsettling to think about needing that info readily available.
Definitely. So moving away from the medical emergencies, the book is also packed with home recipes, like DIY everything.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, ever wanted to make jet black ink that will not spoil by freezing?
Can't say I have, but okay.
How? Extract of logwood, bichromate of potash, pulverize them, mix in hot water. Done.
Huh. What does having recipes like that tell us about, life back then?
It points to way more self-sufficiency, right? Before you could just buy everything cheaply. Knowing how to make basic stuff, even ink, was a real skill. Saved money, maybe got you better quality sometimes.
Makes sense. Any other good ones?
Oh, yeah. Best copying ink made. Soft water, gum arabic, brown sugar, copperas, powdered nut gall. Shake it for like a week or 10 days, then strain it.
A week. Okay, that's dedication to ink.
And it doesn't stop there. Recipes for red, blue, yellow, green, purple, white inks, using all sorts of chemicals.
So beyond office supply, what about personal stuff?
Yeah.
Like cosmetics?
Cleaning your teeth, Castile soap, and cigar ashes.
Cigar ashes.
Really?
Applied with a soft rag. And for soft, glossy hair, alcohol, castor oil, and bergamot flavor. Put it on often. Shows you what they had easily available and what they thought looked good. Okay, cigar ashes aside, the hair thing doesn't sound too weird. What about encouraging hair growth?
Ah, yes. For the gentleman. Imperial unguent for forcing whiskers and mustache growth.
Forcing them, okay.
It's benzoin, tincture of cantharides, that's Spanish fly, by the way.
Whoa.
Castor oil, alcohol, oil of bergamot. Apply morning and night. And, the key part, circulation should be stimulated with a rough towel.
Rub your face raw to get a mustache. Got it.
Basically, shows you the focus on grooming and this belief in, vigorous methods. There's even curl-a-line. To make hair, curl olive oil, oil of organum, oil of rosemary.
It really covers everything. Washing powder.
Yep, royal washing powder. Soda ash, carbonate of soda mixed with a thin glue solution, dried, packaged. Or mucilage for labels, dextrine, glycerin, alcohol, water.
Glue for washing powder.
And
Same.
candy. Don't forget the candy recipe.
Oh, like what?
Fig candy sugar, water, vinegar, butter, figs. Instructions for a big candy house for a shop window display using icing sugar and hot candy. Even a delicious candy coconut kick recipe that supposedly beat out London bakers.
Wow. From liniment to candy houses. It's quite a range.
It really is. Practical, decorative.
But not always wholesome, right? Let's talk about the art of imitation and deception. This part sounds shady.
It is definitely eyebrow-raising, especially the chemical stuff and the livestock section.
What does this tell us about the economy back then? Were people just faking everything?
Well, look at jeweler's gold or Mannheim gold. 3 parts copper, 1 part zinc, 1 part block tin. Melted right, the book claims. The best judges cannot tell it from pure gold without analyzing it.
So basically instructions for making high-quality fakes.
Pretty much. And then best pinchback gold, copper, and zinc, used for a great deal of deception for centuries in watches, jewelry. It just shows how common counterfeiting probably was and how little protection consumers had.
No kidding. And silver fluid for silver plating brass.
Yeah. Precipitated silver, cyanate of potash, hyposulfate of soda. And the author boasts, this knowledge alone is worth $100.
$100? That was serious money then.
Exactly. It shows that this kind of specific chemical know-how, good or bad, was super valuable. People couldn't easily test materials, so they were vulnerable.
Which leads us, I guess, to the animal stuff, the shocking horse doctoring.
Yeah.
That sounds bad.
It is. Shocking is a good word. It's genuinely disturbing. It's all about how to mess with a horse's appearance or behavior, usually to trick someone.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, how to make a horse stop eating. Grease its front teeth and the roof of its mouth with beef tallow. It supposedly won't eat until you wash it out.
Why would you do that?
Maybe to make it seem sick if you don't want to sell it,
Yep.
or maybe affect its performance. It's not clear, but it's deceptive.
Okay, what else?
To make an old horse look young, put a young countenance on a horse, make a tiny cut over the sunken part above its eye, stick in a goose quill, and literally blow air under the skin to puff it up, then stitch it closed.
You're kidding. That's awful.
It is. These aren't cures. They're deliberate frauds to inflate value.
What about covering up problems like the heaves? What even is that?
It's like emphysema in horses, a chronic breathing problem, to hide it temporarily. Drench the horse with a 1/4 pound of birdshot, lead pellets.
Birdshot? Why?
The book claims it will not heave until they pass through him, so just long enough to sell it, presumably.
That's horrifying.
It gets worse. Making a horse look lame, make a small cut on the leg, find a specific white tendon, cut it, stitch the wound. It says the horse will then walk off without a limp, presumably because the real cause of lameness is masked or temporarily altered by this other injury. It's unclear, but deeply unethical.
Unbelievable.
These were definitely designed to mislead buyers. It says a lot about the ethics, or, the lack of ethics in the horse trade back then.
Yeah, clearly.
There's even a way to make a horse balk, like refuse to move. Bathe its shoulder with tincture of cantharides and corrosive sublimate, basically, a chemical irritant to cause pain.
Yeah.
Cruel. It makes you wonder who is actually reading this book and using these secrets.
Exactly. It's a mix of useful, weird, and downright disturbing.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, away from the animal cruelty. What about self-improvement memory hacks?
Ah, yes. There's this old memory system. It converts numbers to letters phonetically.
How does that work?
Like 0 is S, Z, or soft C. 1 is T, TH, or D. 2 is N. 3 is M, and so on. It's about the sound, not the spelling. Double letters count as one.
Okay, so how do you use it?
You make words or phrases using only those sounds to represent a number.
Yeah.
So like the number 10, which is TDTH1 and SZC0, could be this or dizzy, helps you turn numbers into something easier to picture or remember.
Interesting, like a code.
Kind of. And it links ideas in a chain. Like dew reminds you of flower beds, which reminds you of bouquet, then garden, then Eden. You chain concepts together.
Okay, that sounds less weird.
But then, to really deepen the impression, the book mentions this older English method.
Yeah. For teaching boys things like parish boundaries or multiplication tables, they were vigorously thrashed at the landmarks or while reciting the tables.
Thrashed, beaten.
Yep. A mechanical method of attracting attention which was said never to have failed.
That's horrific.
Hmm.
But they thought it worked.
Apparently. The book even says men reading it could recall the 144 lickings that went with learning their times tables. It's a really stark reminder of how different views on education and, well, pain used to be.
Yeah, no kidding. Deepening the impression by beating kids. Wow. Okay, so from these really personal, sometimes bizarre secrets, let's do that whirlwind tour you mentioned, the historical fast facts. What kind of general knowledge did Bogardus think people needed?
It's a funny mix, actually. You get things like the first newspaper ad was in 1652. Ben Franklin put up the first lightning rods in 1752.
Okay, standard trivia night stuff.
Right, but then get this list of where the U.S. Capitol was located. It moved constantly. Philadelphia, then Baltimore, back to Philly, then Lancaster, York, Princeton, Annapolis, Trenton, New York, then finally Washington, D.C.
Whoa, I had no idea it moved that much. That's crazy.
Isn't it? And then just random facts sprinkled in, like Chinese history starts 3000 B.C., spectacles invented in the 13th century, and a very proud note that the U.S. is the largest free territorial government.
Right. Got to get the patriotism in there. What does the selection tell you about the intended audience?
Well, it's this blend of general knowledge, national pride, maybe aimed at someone wanting to appear, well-rounded and informed, and then specific economic facts pop up, like the U.S. having the largest paper money circulation at 700 million, just beating Russia's 670 million.
Oddly specific.
And the origin of the phrase almighty dollar, apparently it started as satire. Plus facts about how long crows and parrots live. It's just this grab bag of stuff Bogardus thought was important or interesting.
A real glimpse into the info diet of the time.
Exactly. What was common knowledge, or maybe what wasn't common knowledge that he felt people should know, before everything got so specialized.
So yeah, it's not just trivia and weird remedies. The book gets surprisingly political and philosophical too, right?
It really does. Quite a turn. It goes into the single tax theory.
What's that?
The idea, pushed by Henry George back then, was that you should only tax the value of land itself, not the buildings or improvements on it. The goal was to tax land ownership, especially land held vacant by speculators, to discourage hoarding and open up jobs.
Interesting idea.
And then there's transportation. It argues for public ownership and control of all highways, and that includes railroad beds, leaving the actual running of trains equally free to all.
Public ownership of railroads. That sounds pretty radical for the time.
It was definitely a progressive stance, yeah, reflecting worries about monopolies, big trusts, and access for ordinary people.
Okay. What else?
It gets deep into the money debate, gold standard versus bimetallism.
The old gold versus silver thing. Which side was Bougardas on?
Oh, strongly for bimetallism backing currency with both gold and silver. He really rips into politicians who supported the gold standard, saying they were sliding back to the unfair financial rules of King George III.
Wow, invoking King George. Strong words.
Yeah. He even connects it to the issue of the U.S. holding the Philippines after the Spanish-American War, arguing the slavery question wasn't truly over because of that. And he throws out voting stats on the money issue, like 7 million supposedly voted for international free silver, 6.5 million for independent free silver. That's 13.5 million by metalists, compared to only 134,000 gold standard Democrats.
So overwhelming public support for silver, according to him.
That's his argument.
Yeah.
He's painting this picture of a powerful populist wave against the gold standard and, big finance trying to ignore the will of 99% of voters.
Interesting. Did he argue why gold wasn't stable?
Yes. He argued that law does regulate value and that gold does change value. He points to how the official definition of a dollar in grains of gold or silver changed multiple times between 1792 and 1893. It's a direct critique of the idea that gold was some fixed, unchangeable standard.
Sounds pretty passionate about it.
Definitely engaged. And to make a point about checking facts, he tells this funny story about Ben Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, a teacher came to Franklin puzzled. A boy claimed that if you have a tub with 500 pounds of water weighing 600 pounds total, adding a 100-pound live fish wouldn't increase the total weight. It would still be 600 pounds. Some weird quirk of gravity or buoyancy, supposedly.
Okay, that sounds wrong.
Right, so Franklin, instead of just thinking about it, actually gets a tub, water, and a fish. Weighed the tub and water, 600 pounds, added the 100-pound fish, total weight.
Should be 700.
Exactly, 700 pounds. So when the teacher came back for the explanation, Franklin just said, the boy lied.
Huh, love it. Test things out. Don't just believe weird claims.
Precisely. A very practical lesson.
The book also has more straightforward wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Like from Father Abraham. That sounds like Poor Richard's Almanac.
It basically is. Heavily influenced by Franklin, lots of emphasis on hard work, saving money, avoiding debt.
Any good lines?
Oh, yeah. Industry need not wish. He that lives on hope will die fasting. There are no gains without pains. And the big one, the borrower is a slave to the lender and the debtor to the creditor.
Oof, powerful.
Yeah. The advice is basically, disdain the chain, preserve your freedom, be industrious and free, be frugal and free.
Solid advice. But did people listen?
Well, here's a kicker. The author notes that after Father Abraham gave his big speech, the crowd approved the doctrine and immediately practiced the contrary.
Oh, no.
Just as if it had been a common sermon. They went right back to spending money extravagantly.
Wow, that says a lot about human nature, doesn't it? Knowing versus doing.
It really does. A timeless struggle. We know what's good for us, but yeah, it's hard to resist sometimes.
And speaking of stirring words, it includes Patrick Henry, too.
Yes. Excerpts from his famous speeches, warning about the insidious smile of the British, telling people not to be betrayed by a kiss, asking, are fleets and armies necessary to a work of love and reconciliation, and declaring that 3 millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty are invincible. Really powerful, revolutionary rhetoric.
You can see why that would be included. Very inspiring for the time.
And the author connects that spirit to his own time, invoking Andrew Jackson, saying America needed a Jackson figure to stand up against the encroachments of organized wealth. He contrasts moments of American independence, Yorktown, the War of 1812, Lincoln telling Britain hands off during the Civil War against what he sees as bowing to international pressures, especially financial ones. It's a real call for nationalist independence.
So it covers personal life, economics, politics, history. What else is in this incredible book?
Well, to round it all off, there's a very dramatic temperance tale. Really highlights the social issues and moral messages of the era.
The Temperance Tale, like anti-alcohol.
Exactly. It tells this story, set in 1870. A woman, dressed in mourning, holding a child, walks into a saloon.
Okay.
She says she has no home, no friends, can't work, needs help. The owner and the men there give her some money. Then someone asks her, "Why did you come into a saloon for help?" And she points to a bottle on the shelf labeled whiskey.
And says,
She says, "That is what brought me here, whiskey."
wow, heavy, what happens?
The impact in the story is immediate. After she leaves, the saloon owner supposedly says, "Gentlemen, that lady was right, and I have sold my last glass of whiskey."
It's like that.
And a young man, known as a hopeless case, apparently pipes up, "And I have drank my last glass of whiskey." It's this very stark, moralistic illustration of alcohol's destructive power, very typical of the temperance movement messages.
Yeah, you can picture that being told for maximum effect.
Absolutely. How that one word, whiskey, spoken in that context could supposedly trigger such instant change. It really shows the power they believed personal testimony and drama had in changing minds back then.
Phew. What a journey that was. Through this 1,000 secrets of wise and rich men revealed.
Yeah.
We've gone from like homemade liniment and cosmetics to faking gold, tricking horses, weird memory aids, and huge political debates.
It's incredible, isn't it, how one book pulls together all these completely different threads. Health, beauty, chemistry, animals, the mind, national economics, government. It really does paint this vivid picture of a society that's grappling with huge changes, trying to figure out personal improvement, liberty, money, all of it.
So when you step back, what does it all mean? What's the real nature of a secret in a book like this? Is it just, a forgotten recipe, a weird historical fact? Or does it tap into something deeper, this ongoing human desire we have to control our lives, our health, our money, even our politics?
Yeah, and remember that line from Poor Richard via Father Abraham, "Experience keeps a dear school, but fools will learn in no other." People heard the advice.
Right, they approve the doctrine and immediately practice the contrary.
Exactly. So the book offers all these secrets for wealth, health, political clout. But there's such a mixed bag, aren't they? You've got tips for making counterfeit gold right alongside arguments for the common man against big trusts. What does that tell you?
About maybe the tension between looking out for yourself
Yeah.
and looking out for everyone else.
Yeah, precisely. That tension between individual gain and the collective good, and how that conflict has always been there, playing out throughout history. It definitely leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What secrets or beliefs do we hold on to today that might seem just as strange or maybe just as insightful to people looking back 100 years from now?